The notification pinged on her cracked phone screen, a sound that barely registered in the chaos of her tiny, cluttered apartment. She was scrolling through X, her one escape from the grind of her low-paying job, when a bolded username caught her eye at Zane Vance Official. Her heart skipped. Zane Vance, the billionaire's son, known for his charm, his private jets, and a lifestyle she could only dream of, had slid into her DMs with a simple, "Hey, saw your post about dreaming big. What's your story?" Her hands shook as she stared at the message, unsure if it was a prank or a glitch in the matrix. She wasn't anyone special, just a 20-something hustling to make ends meet. Her ex posts mostly rants about life's unfairness or memes to cope. Zane's profile was verified, his feed a parade of luxury, yachts, penthouses, and A-list parties. Why her? She typed a cautious reply, her mind racing with possibilities, from scams to fairy tales. Was this a cruel joke, or could a random message from a billionaire's son change her life? Her finger hovered over send, her gut twisting with a mix of hope and dread. As she hit send, her phone buzzed again, another message from Zane. "You seem real. I like that. Let's talk." Her breath caught. This wasn't just a like or a retweet, this was personal. She glanced around her cramped space, at the unpaid bills on the counter, and felt a spark of something dangerous, ambition. What did a guy like Zane want with someone like her? She didn't know, but she was about to find out. Her phone rang 2 days later, a private number flashing on the screen. She almost didn't answer, assuming it was a debt collector, but curiosity won. "Hey, it's Zane," came a smooth voice, casual yet commanding, like he owned the airwaves. She froze, gripping the phone, her voice barely a whisper as she confirmed it was her. He laughed, a sound that felt like velvet, and said he'd been thinking about her posts, her raw honesty about struggling. "You're different," he said. "I want to know more." They talked for hours, her sitting cross-legged on her worn couch, him somewhere with the faint hum of a city skyline in the background. He shared glimpses of his world, private parties, endless expectations, and a loneliness she hadn't expected. She opened up too, about her dreams of escaping the grind, of making something of herself. It felt surreal, like a movie, but his voice was real, grounding her even as her heart raced with questions. Was he genuine, or was this some rich guy's game? By the time they hung up, her head was spinning. Zane promised to call again, and she believed him, though a voice in her head screamed to be careful. She checked X, his latest post a cryptic, "Found someone who gets it." Her followers noticed, flooding her mentions with speculation. Was she the someone? The attention was thrilling but terrifying. She wasn't ready for the spotlight, not yet. Still, she couldn't stop smiling, her dreams suddenly feeling closer than ever. Her ex-followers doubled overnight, her inbox flooded with curious messages and jealous shade. Zane had liked her latest post, a simple quote about resilience, and the internet exploded. Blogs picked it up, speculating about the mystery girl catching the billionaire's son's eye. She stared at her phone, her modest 200 followers now nearing 2,000, her notifications a chaotic buzz. She wanted to feel flattered, but the sudden attention felt like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. Zane messaged again, teasing her about the fame. "You handling this okay?" he asked, his tone playful but with a hint of concern. She admitted she was overwhelmed, and he offered to meet, somewhere private, just to talk. Her heart pounded at the idea. Meeting Zane in person? It was a fantasy, but also a risk. What if he wasn't who he seemed? What if this was all a publicity stunt? She agreed, her curiosity outweighing her fear, and he sent coordinates to a discreet location. As she prepared, her best friend called, warning her about rich guys and their motives. "He's probably just bored," her friend said, but she brushed it off, clinging to the hope that Zane saw something in her. She chose her best outfit, a thrift store find she'd tailored herself, and headed out, her stomach in knots. The coordinates led to a sleek rooftop lounge, empty except for a single table. Zayn was there, real and impossibly handsome, smiling like she was the only person in the world. Zayn stood as she approached, his presence magnetic, his smile disarming. The rooftop was a dream, city lights sparkling below, the air cool and quiet. He pulled out her chair, a gesture that felt both old-fashioned and intimate, and they talked like they had on the phone, only now she could see the way his eyes lit up when he laughed. He asked about her dreams, her struggles, listening like he genuinely cared, and for a moment, she forgot the gap between their worlds. But then a photographer appeared, snapping photos from a distance before vanishing. Zayn's jaw tightened, and he apologized, explaining that paparazzi were a constant shadow. She felt exposed, her face now potentially plastered across tabloids. "I should have warned you," he said, his voice heavy with guilt. She wanted to be angry, but his sincerity stopped her. Instead, she asked why he'd chosen her, and he hesitated, his eyes searching hers before saying, "You're not like anyone I've met. You're real." They parted with a promise to meet again, but as she rode the bus home, her phone buzzed with notifications. A blurry photo of them was already trending on X, captioned, "Billionaire's son spotted with mystery girl." Her heart sank. This wasn't just about her and Zayn anymore, it was a spectacle. She wondered if she could handle the scrutiny, or if this fairy tale was already turning into a nightmare. The next morning, her ex mentions were a war zone. Fans of Zayn called her a gold digger, while others begged for details, assuming she'd spill for clout. She muted her notifications, her hands shaking as she read cruel comments about her clothes, her background, her everything. She wasn't prepared for this, the way strangers tore into her life based on a single photo. She wanted to message Zayn, to ask how he dealt with the hate, but fear stopped her. What if he thought she was overreacting? At work, her co-workers whispered, some asking outright if she was that girl from the news. She denied it, but the looks followed her all day, making her feel like an imposter in her own life. When Zayn called that evening, his voice was a lifeline. "Ignore them," he said. "They don't know you." He invited her to a private getaway, somewhere they could escape the noise. Tempted, she hesitated, her friend's warnings echoing in her mind. Was she falling too fast, or was this her chance to break free? She agreed, packing a small bag with her best clothes, her heart a mix of excitement and dread. Zayn sent a car, a sleek, black SUV that felt like it belonged in another world. As it whisked her away, she checked X, seeing her follower count climb past 10,000. The world was watching, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to be seen. But with Zayn, she felt a spark of courage, a belief that maybe, just maybe, she could belong in his world. The next morning, her ex mentions were a war zone. Fans of Zayn called her a gold digger, while others begged for details, assuming she'd spill for clout. She muted her notifications, her hands shaking as she read cruel comments about her clothes, her background, her everything. She wasn't prepared for this, the way strangers tore into her life based on a single photo. She wanted to message Zayn, to ask how he dealt with the hate, but fear stopped her. What if he thought she was overreacting? At work, her co-workers whispered, some asking outright if she was that girl from the news. She denied it, but the looks followed her all day, making her feel like an imposter in her own life. When Zayn called that evening, his voice was a lifeline. "Ignore them," he said. "They don't know you." He invited her to a private getaway, somewhere they could escape the noise. Tempted, she hesitated, her friend's warnings echoing in her mind. Was she falling too fast, or was this her chance to break free? She agreed, packing a small bag with her best clothes, her heart a mix of excitement and dread. Zayn sent a car, a sleek, black SUV that felt like it belonged in another world. As it whisked her away, she checked X, seeing her follower count climb past 10,000. The world was watching, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to be seen. But with Zayn, she felt a spark of courage, a belief that maybe, just maybe, she could belong in his world. Back home, the world felt harsher. The villa's magic faded as she returned to her cramped apartment and endless bills. Zayn's messages were still warm, but less frequent, his family stuff a lingering shadow. She tried to focus on work, but the ex-rumors were relentless, posts about Zayn's wild past, hinting at scandals she knew nothing about. Curiosity gnawed at her, and she dug through old articles, finding vague mentions of a disappearance years ago, tied to Zayn's name. What was he hiding? She confronted him during their next call, her voice steady despite her nerves. Zayn sighed, admitting he'd been involved in a messy breakup years ago, one that ended with his ex leaking lies to the press. "It's why I'm careful now," he said, his voice raw. "I didn't want to scare you off." She believed him, but the doubt lingered. Was he fully honest, or was there more? He promised to tell her everything in person, suggesting another meetup, this time at his place. The invitation thrilled her, but the anonymous ex-account messaged her directly, ask him about the night he vanished. Her blood ran cold. The account had no profile, no history, just a handful of posts targeting her and Zayn. She screenshot it, her mind racing. Was this a jealous ex, a rival, or something worse? She agreed to meet Zayn, determined to get answers, but the message haunted her, a warning she couldn't ignore. Zayn's penthouse was a world of glass and gold, every detail screaming wealth. He welcomed her with a nervous smile, sensing her tension. Over dinner, she asked about the night he vanished, watching his face for lies. He froze, then explained, years ago, he'd left a high-profile event, overwhelmed by pressure, and disappeared for a week to clear his head. The media spun it into a scandal, but he swore it was just a mental health break. "I'm not perfect," he said, his eyes pleading for her trust. She wanted to believe him, but the anonymous messages kept coming, each one darker. "He's not who you think." She showed Zayn the screenshots, and his expression hardened. "Someone's trying to sabotage us," he said, promising to track the account. His protectiveness reassured her, but also raised questions. Why was someone so determined to tear them apart? They spent the night talking, her doubts easing, but as she left, she noticed a woman watching from across the street, her face obscured. Back home, the ex-storm grew worse. A new photo surfaced, her and Zayn at the villa, taken from an angle that suggested someone had been close. Her heart pounded. Was it the woman she'd seen? The anonymous account posted again, "You're in over your head." She blocked it, but the fear lingered. Zayn was her dream, but dreams could turn dark, and she was starting to wonder if she'd stumbled into a trap. The woman's face haunted her, a fleeting glimpse that felt like a warning. She tried to focus on Zayn, their late-night calls a lifeline, but the anonymous messages kept coming from new accounts, each one taunting her with vague threats. "He's lying," one read. "You'll see." She didn't tell Zayn, not wanting to seem paranoid, but the fear was eating at her. At work, she caught co-workers whispering, their glances sharp with judgment. Her life was unraveling, and she wasn't sure who to trust. Zayn invited her to a private dinner, promising a night to forget the chaos. She arrived at a hidden restaurant, exclusive and tucked away, but her nerves were frayed. Halfway through the meal, she saw her, the woman from the street, now sitting at the bar, watching them. Zayn didn't notice, too focused on her, but she excused herself, heart racing, and approached the woman. Up close, she was striking, her eyes cold. "You don't belong here," the woman said, then left before she could respond. Shaken, she told Zayn, who looked alarmed. He admitted he'd been getting threats too, calls from unknown numbers demanding he end it with her. He swore he'd protect her, but his words felt hollow against the growing mystery. Who was this woman, and what did she want? As they left, she glanced back, half expecting to see the woman again, but the street was empty. The night felt heavier, like a storm was coming, and she wasn't sure she could outrun it. Zane's next message was urgent. We need to talk. Now. He picked her up in his car, his face tense as he drove to a quiet lookout point. There, he confessed his father had issued an ultimatum: end things with her or lose his inheritance. He thinks you're a liability, Zane said, his voice breaking. She felt a pang of betrayal, not from Zane but from the world that saw her as less. She asked if he'd fight for her, and he nodded, but his hesitation spoke louder than his words. Back home, the anonymous account struck again, this time with a photo of her at the lookout, taken just hours ago. "Time's up," the caption read. Her stomach churned. She was being watched, stalked. She called Zane, who promised to hire security, but she felt trapped, her private life now a public game. She scrolled X, seeing her name trend with hashtags like #golddigger and #Zane's mistake. The hate was suffocating, but a small group of supporters rallied, calling her an inspiration. It gave her strength, but not enough to quiet her fears. She decided to confront the mystery head-on. Using a friend's tech skills, she traced the anonymous account's IP to a nearby location. Against her better judgment, she went there, a sleek office building, its logo vaguely familiar. Inside, she saw a photo on the wall, the woman from the restaurant, smiling beside Zane's father. Her heart stopped. Was this woman family, an ex, or something worse? She left before anyone noticed, her mind racing with a new plan, to uncover the truth before it destroyed her. She didn't tell Zane about the office visit, not yet. Instead, she dug deeper, using X to search for clues about the woman. A few old posts linked her to Zane's family, calling her Lila, a close associate of his father. Was she a sister, a cousin, or something else? The anonymous messages kept coming, now hinting at a deal Zane had made years ago, one that could ruin him. She felt torn. Zane was her anchor, but the secrets were piling up, and trust was slipping away. At their next meeting, Zane seemed distracted, his phone buzzing constantly. She asked about Lila, watching his reaction. His face paled, and he admitted Lila was his father's fixer, someone who handled the family's messes. "She's dangerous," he warned, urging her to stay away. But his warning only fueled her determination. If Lila was behind the threats, she needed to know why. Zane begged her to trust him, but the doubt in her gut was growing, a whisper that he might be hiding more than he let on. That night, she got a new message from an unknown number: "Meet me, or I leak everything." It included an address and a time. Her heart raced. This could be a trap, but also her chance for answers. She told her best friend, who begged her not to go, but she couldn't let fear win. Armed with nothing but her phone and her courage, she headed to the meeting, ready to face Lila, or whoever was waiting. The game was changing, and she was done being a pawn. The address led to an abandoned warehouse, its shadow swallowing the dim streetlights. She hesitated at the entrance, her phone's flashlight trembling in her hand. Inside, Lila stood alone, her expression unreadable. "You're braver than I thought," Lila said, her voice cold but curious. She revealed she worked for Zane's father, tasked with protecting the family's image. "Zane's reckless, and you're a threat," she said, offering a deal: walk away from Zane, and she'd get enough money to start over. She refused, anger outweighing her fear. Lila smirked, tossing her a flash drive. "Look at this before you decide," she said, then vanished into the dark. Back home, she plugged the drive into her laptop, her hands shaking. It contained emails, Zane negotiating a deal to hide his disappearance years ago, paying off sources to keep it quiet. Her heart sank. Had he lied about everything? She wanted to confront him, but the messages kept coming, now from Lila, "You have 24 hours." Torn, she called Zane, demanding the truth. He sounded desperate, swearing the emails were manipulated, but his voice cracked with guilt. "I didn't tell you everything," he admitted, promising to explain in person. She agreed to meet, but her trust was fraying. As she hung up, X lit up with a new rumor: Zane was engaged to someone else. Her world tilted. Was this Lila's doing, or was Zane playing her all along? She needed answers, and she needed them now. The X post about Zane's engagement spread like wildfire, complete with a blurry photo of him with a glamorous woman at a gala. Her followers flooded her with questions, some accusing her of being a side piece. She felt sick, scrolling through comments that tore her apart. Zane called, his voice frantic, swearing the woman was just a family friend and the engagement was a lie. "Lila's behind this," he said, begging her to meet him at a safe house to talk. At the safe house, a modest cabin far from the city, Zane looked exhausted, his charm replaced by raw vulnerability. He admitted he'd kept things from her, not to hurt her but to protect her from his family's world. The disappearance was real, but the emails were fake, forged by Lila to scare her off. He showed her proof, texts from Lila threatening to ruin him if he didn't ditch her. She wanted to believe him, but the engagement rumor gnawed at her. Who was the woman in the photo, and why was Lila so desperate to break them apart? As they talked, a car pulled up outside, headlights cutting through the dark. Zane tensed, grabbing her hand. "We need to go," he whispered. They slipped out the back, her heart pounding as they hid in the woods. "The car belonged to Lila's men," Zane said, "sent to intimidate them." Huddled in the dark, she realized this wasn't just about her and Zane, it was a war with his family, and she was caught in the crossfire. She had to decide, fight for him or walk away before it consumed her. They stayed hidden until dawn, Zane's hand warm in hers as they navigated the woods back to his car. He drove fast, his jaw set, promising to confront Lila and end this. She felt a mix of fear and adrenaline, her life now a thriller she hadn't signed up for. Zane explained that Lila wasn't just a fixer, she was obsessed with controlling his life, a loyalty to his father that bordered on fanaticism. "She thinks I'm throwing away my legacy," he said, his voice bitter. Back in the city, she checked X, finding new posts from Lila's anonymous accounts, now leaking old photos of Zane with other women, captioned, "He never changes." Her stomach twisted, but she noticed something. Lila was in the background of one photo, her eyes locked on Zane with a look that wasn't professional. Was Lila in love with him? The thought hit her like a brick, explaining the vendetta. She showed Zane, who looked sick, admitting Lila had once confessed feelings he'd rejected. They planned to expose Lila, but first, they needed proof. Zane hacked into his family's private server, risky, but he knew the codes. They found emails from Lila to his father, detailing a plan to eliminate her as a threat. The words sent chills down her spine. This wasn't just jealousy, it was dangerous. Zane vowed to protect her, but as they left the safe house, a black SUV followed. They were being hunted, and time was running out. Zane took her to a friend's loft, a tech genius who could trace Lila's accounts. The friend confirmed Lila was using burner phones, but one slip-up linked her to a private email. It was enough to confront her, but Zane warned it could backfire. Lila was untouchable, backed by his father's power. She didn't care, she was done running. They set a trap, messaging Lila from a fake account, luring her to a public cafe where they could record her. Lila arrived, confident and cold, unaware of the hidden camera. She admitted to the threats, smugly calling her collateral damage in Zane's rebellion. But when pressed about her feelings for Zane, Lila's facade cracked, her voice shaking as she called him hers. It was the confession they needed. Zane stepped out, confronting her, and Lila's face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this," she spat, storming off. The video was gold, but posting it could ruin Zane's family, and her. They debated what to do, the video burning a hole in her phone. X was buzzing with new rumors, some claiming she was blackmailing Zane. Her followers were split, half cheering her defiance, half calling her a fame chaser. She felt the weight of every choice, knowing one wrong move could destroy them both. But Lila wasn't done, and a new message from her made it clear, "You think you've won? Watch this." Hours later, a video hit X, not theirs, but one of her, edited to make her look like she was begging Zane for money. The comments were brutal, calling her a scam artist, her follower count plummeting as the hate grew. She felt betrayed, not just by Lila but by the world that believed the lie so easily. Zane was furious, promising to sue, but she knew legal battles wouldn't fix her reputation. She needed to fight back, now. They uploaded their video, exposing Lila's threats and obsession. It went viral, the X community divided, some called it proof of her innocence, others a desperate stunt. Lila responded with a cryptic post, "Truth comes out in the end." Zane's father called, livid, accusing her of dragging their name through the mud. Zane defended her, but she saw the strain in his eyes. This was tearing him apart, and she wondered if loving him was worth the cost. That night, alone, she cried, the weight of the drama crushing her. Her phone buzzed, a message from an old friend of Zane's, claiming to have dirt on Lila. "Meet me," it read, with an address. Her gut screamed trap, but she was desperate. She told Zane, who insisted on coming, but she refused, she needed to do this alone. As she headed to the meet, she felt the stakes rising, her life no longer her own but a story the world was writing. The meeting was in a dimly lit bar, the friend a nervous guy named Marcus who claimed he'd worked with Lila. He showed her documents, proof Lila had embezzled from Zane's family to fund her vendetta. "She's unhinged," Marcus whispered, glancing around. But as they talked, she noticed his eyes darting to the door, and her instincts screamed. Before she could leave, two men approached, their faces hard. "Lila says hi," one growled, grabbing her arm. She fought back, kicking and screaming, drawing the bar's attention. The men fled, but Marcus was gone too. She realized he'd set her up, likely paid by Lila. Shaken, she called Zane, who arrived in minutes, his face pale with fear. He held her, promising no one would hurt her again, but the documents were still in her bag, real or not, they were leverage. Back at his penthouse, they pored over them, finding bank records that could ruin Lila if exposed. But Zane hesitated. "If we use this, it could hurt my family too," he said. She felt a sting of betrayal. After everything, was he choosing his legacy over her? They argued, her voice breaking as she asked if she was just a phase. He swore she wasn't, but the doubt was back, stronger than ever. As she left, X lit up with a new post from Lila, "She's not what she seems." Attached was a photo of her with Marcus, taken that night, twisted to look like a secret rendezvous. The photo with Marcus exploded online, painting her as a cheater. Her followers turned, her inbox filled with hate, and even her co-workers started whispering. She felt like she was drowning, her dream of a new life with Zane crumbling. She called him, expecting support, but his voice was cold. "Is there something you're not telling me?" he asked, the photo shaking his trust. Her heart broke. He was supposed to believe in her, not question her. She went to his penthouse, determined to clear the air. They fought, words sharp and raw, until she showed him the documents from Marcus. Zane's anger softened, but he admitted his father was pressuring him to cut ties. "He's threatening to disown me," he said, his voice hollow. She saw the boy beneath the billionaire, torn between love and duty, but it didn't ease her pain. She left, telling him to figure out what he wanted, her heart screaming that she'd lost him. Alone, she posted on X a raw, honest message: "I'm not perfect, but I'm real. Believe what you want." It gained traction, some fans rallying behind her, but Lila's accounts kept pushing the narrative. Then a new message came, not from Lila but from Zayn's mother: "Meet me. I can help." Her stomach twisted. Was this another trap, or a lifeline? She agreed, desperate for any way to save what was left of her heart and her name. Zayn's mother was regal, her presence commanding in the private lounge where they met. She studied her with sharp eyes, then offered a deal: leave Zayn, and she'd ensure Lila was dealt with, plus a payout to start over. "You're not right for him," she said, not unkindly. "This world will destroy you." It was tempting, freedom from the drama, a chance to rebuild, but it meant giving up Zayn. She refused, her voice steady despite her fear. His mother sighed, handing her a folder. Inside were photos of Lila with Zayn's father, intimate in a way that suggested more than business. "Lila's not just a fixer," his mother said. "She's his mistress, and she sees you as a threat to her power." The revelation hit hard. Lila's obsession wasn't just about Zayn, but about control over the entire family. Armed with this, she felt a new resolve. She thanked his mother, who warned her, "Be careful. Lila plays dirty." Back home, she shared the folder with Zayn, who looked sick. "I didn't know," he whispered, his world unraveling. They planned to confront his father, but Lila struck first, a new ex-post, this time a doctored audio of her confessing to using Zayn for fame. The internet erupted, her name dragged further through the mud. She felt the walls closing in, but Zayn's hand in hers gave her strength. They were in this together, and they'd fight, together or not at all. Zayn arranged a meeting with his father, a towering man whose presence filled the boardroom. He barely acknowledged her, his eyes fixed on Zayn. "This ends now," he said, slamming a contract on the table, Zayn's inheritance in exchange for cutting her out. She felt invisible, a pawn in their game, but Zayn pushed the contract back. "I choose her," he said, his voice firm. His father's face darkened, promising consequences. Lila was there, smirking in the corner, but her confidence faltered when Zayn mentioned the photos. His father's eyes flickered with panic, and Lila's smile vanished. "You're bluffing," she said, but her voice shook. They didn't have to show the photos, just the threat was enough. His father dismissed them, but not before warning her, "You're playing a dangerous game." As they left, she felt a mix of triumph and terror. Lila was cornered, but cornered animals fight hardest. That night, X was quieter, the doctored audio losing traction as Zayn's fans rallied, sensing the truth. But a new message from Lila chilled her: "You've made an enemy." Attached was a photo of her apartment building, taken from outside. Her heart stopped, she wasn't safe anymore. Zayn insisted she stay with him, and she agreed, but the fear lingered. This wasn't just about love, it was about survival, and she wasn't sure how much fight she had left. Zayn's safe house was a fortress, guarded and secluded, but she still felt exposed. They spent days planning, using the photos to pressure Lila into backing off. Zayn's tech friend traced her latest accounts, linking them to a network of paid trolls. It was a start, but Lila was slippery, always one step ahead. She tried to stay strong, but the constant threat wore her down, her dreams of a fairy tale replaced by a fight for her life. Zayn was her rock, but cracks showed. He snapped at small things, the pressure of his family's disapproval weighing on him. One night, they argued over her posting on X. She wanted to fight back publicly, he wanted to stay low. "You don't get it," she said, tears in her eyes. "This is my name they're ruining." He apologized, pulling her close, but the tension lingered. They were united, but the strain was real, and she wondered if love could survive this war. Then came a breakthrough. Zayn's friend found a deleted email from Lila, admitting to the fake audio. They had proof, but using it meant exposing Zayn's father's affair, which could destroy his family. She saw the pain in Zayn's eyes, torn between her and his legacy. She told him to choose what was right for him, but inside, she was breaking. As they debated, her phone buzzed, a live stream from Lila, announcing the truth about Zayn's girlfriend. The final battle was here, and she wasn't ready. Lila's stream was a masterclass in manipulation, painting her as a scheming opportunist with edited clips and half-truths. The comments were brutal, but some fans fought back, sharing Zayn's video of Lila's threats. She watched, heart pounding, as the tide slowly turned. Her supporters were growing, calling out Lila's lies. Zayn squeezed her hand, urging her to respond live, to tell her story. She was terrified, but she agreed, knowing this was her chance to reclaim her narrative. Her live stream was raw, unscripted. She told the world about her struggles, her dreams, and how Zayn saw her when no one else did. She showed the email proving Lila's lies, careful not to mention the affair. The response was overwhelming, her follower count surged, and #TeamTruth trended. Lila's stream faltered, her comments turning against her. For the first time, she felt powerful, but the victory was short-lived. Lila messaged her, "You'll pay for this." Zayn's father called, furious about the public drama but shaken by the email. He offered a truce, Lila would be fired, but only if they stopped digging. Zayn refused, determined to end Lila's reign, but she wasn't sure. The affair photos were still in her pocket, a ticking bomb. Should she use them and risk Zayn's family, or trust his father's word? As she weighed her options, a knock at the safe house door made them both freeze. Someone had found them. Zayn checked the security feed. A man in a hoodie, face obscured, stood outside. He wasn't alone, 2 others waited in a car. Zayn grabbed a bat, but she stopped him, whispering to call his security. The man pounded on the door, shouting her name, and her blood ran cold. It wasn't Lila's voice, but it was someone she knew, Marcus, the friend who'd betrayed her. He was back, and he wasn't alone. Security arrived, detaining Marcus and his men. He spilled everything, terrified. Lila had paid him to scare her, promising more if he delivered proof of her disloyalty. The documents he'd given her were real, though, stolen from Lila's files. Zayn's face darkened, the betrayal cut deep. They sent Marcus away with a warning, but the real threat was Lila. She was escalating, and they needed to act fast. They decided to leak the affair photos anonymously, hoping to force Lila out without implicating themselves. The photos hit X like a bomb, sparking a frenzy. Zayn's father was humiliated, Lila's name dragged through the mud. She posted a desperate defense, claiming she was framed, but the evidence was damning. Zayn's father cut ties with her, and she vanished from X, her accounts silent. It felt like a win, but the cost was high. Zayn's relationship with his father was fractured, and she felt the weight of it. As they held each other, she wondered if they'd survived the storm or just traded one for another. With Lila gone, the ex-hate slowed, but the scars remained. Her reputation was recovering, her followers now in the tens of thousands, some calling her a hero for standing up to power. But the victory felt hollow. Zayn was distant, grappling with his family's fallout. His father had frozen his accounts, a punishment for defying him. She tried to support him, but the gap between their worlds felt wider than ever. Was their love enough to bridge it? They spent days rebuilding, her posting about resilience, him trying to mend things with his family. One night, he showed her a letter from his mother, thanking her for exposing Lila. It came with a check, enough to pay her debts and start fresh. She tore it up, wanting to earn her future, not buy it. Zayn smiled, pride in his eyes, but the tension lingered. They were together, but the world was still watching, waiting for their next move. Then came a new message, not from Lila, but from an unknown source. "You think it's over?" Check your inbox. Her heart sank as she opened it, a photo of her and Zayn, taken inside the safe house. Someone was still watching, someone who knew too much. She showed Zayn, whose face hardened. "We're not done fighting," he said, pulling her close. The fairy tale was gone, replaced by a reality they'd have to face together. The photo was a chilling reminder they weren't safe. Zayn hired a private investigator, determined to find the new stalker. The PI traced the email to a server linked to one of Lila's old associates, a man named Victor, known for digging dirt on elites. Was he working alone, or was Lila pulling strings from the shadows? She felt paranoia creeping in, checking her locks twice, avoiding X to stay off the radar. But the world wouldn't let her hide, her story was too big now. Zayn suggested they go public, tell their story to a trusted outlet to control the narrative. She was hesitant, more exposure meant more risk, but agreed, knowing silence wasn't an option. They chose a small, independent blog, sharing their journey from that first DM to the war with Lila. The post went viral, painting them as a modern Romeo and Juliet, fighting against power and lies. Fans rallied, but so did haters, and Victor's messages kept coming, each one darker, "You can't hide forever." They met the PI, who had a lead. Victor was working for someone high up, someone with a grudge against Zayn's family. The trail pointed to a rival billionaire, an old enemy of Zayn's father. The stakes were higher now, a game of wealth and power they were caught in. She felt small, but Zayn's determination fueled her. "We'll end this," he promised, but as they left, she saw a car tailing them. The fight wasn't over, and she wasn't sure they could win. The PI confirmed the rival's involvement, a man named Roland, whose feud with Zayn's father went back decades. Victor was his hired gun, tasked with destroying Zayn to weaken the family. The photos, the threats, it was all part of Roland's plan to humiliate them. She felt like a pawn again, but this time, she was angry. She wasn't just fighting for love, she was fighting for her life, her name, her future. Zayn agreed, they had to take Roland down. They gathered evidence, using Zayn's connections to dig into Roland's dealings. They found shady transactions, enough to expose him, but it was risky. Roland was untouchable, his influence vast. They decided to leak the info to X anonymously, letting the internet do the rest. The posts spread fast, Roland's name trending as whistleblowers piled on. Victor's messages stopped, but a new one came from Roland himself: "You're playing with fire." The threat shook her, but Zayn was resolute. He proposed a bold move: crash one of Roland's private parties, confront him publicly, and record it. It was dangerous, but they were out of options. She agreed, her heart racing as they planned. Dressed in borrowed elegance, she felt like an imposter, but Zayn's hand in hers grounded her. As they stepped into the lion's den, she knew this was their last stand. One way or another, it would end. Roland's party was a glittering cage, filled with elites who eyed her like an outsider. Zayn held her hand, his confidence a shield as they approached Roland, a man whose smile had venom. They confronted him, her voice steady as she accused him of the threats. Roland laughed, denying everything, but the hidden camera in her purse was rolling. The crowd whispered, sensing drama, and she felt a rush of power. This was her moment. Then Victor appeared, his presence chilling. He whispered something to Roland, who smirked and excused himself. Zayn pulled her aside, noticing security closing in. They slipped out, but not before Victor grabbed her arm, hissing, "You'll regret this." She yanked free, heart pounding, as they fled to the car. The video was shaky but damning: Roland's denial, Victor's threat, all caught on tape. They posted it to X, and the internet exploded, demanding justice. But Roland struck back, leaking a story accusing Zayn of fraud. The claims were flimsy, but the damage was real. Zayn's reputation took a hit, and his father blamed her. She felt the weight of it, wondering if she dragged Zane down with her. He swore he didn't care, but the strain was showing. As they hid in a new safe house, she checked X, seeing their video gain traction. They were winning, but at what cost? And Victor was still out there, waiting. The PI found Victor's hideout, a run-down apartment littered with surveillance gear. They debated going to the police, but Zane wanted to handle it themselves, to end it for good. She agreed, but insisted on backup. With the PI and two trusted friends, they raided the apartment, finding Victor alone, surrounded by photos of them. He smirked, unafraid, until Zane showed him the video. "You're done," Zane said, and Victor's bravado cracked. Victor confessed Roland had paid him to ruin them, but he had no loyalty. He handed over files, proof of Roland's schemes, in exchange for leniency. They left with the evidence, but not before Victor warned, "Roland doesn't lose." Back at the safe house, they sent the files to a major news outlet, exposing Roland's empire. The story broke, and Roland's name was ruined, his allies distancing themselves. X celebrated, calling her and Zane heroes, but she felt no joy, only exhaustion. Zane's father called, offering a truce. He'd reinstate Zane's inheritance if they dropped the family drama. She saw the hope in Zane's eyes, but also the pain. She told him to take it, to rebuild, but he refused. "I want you, not his money," he said, kissing her. It was the fairy tale she dreamed of, but the scars were real. As they embraced, a final message came, not from Victor, but from an unknown number, "This isn't over." Her heart sank. Was there another enemy waiting? The threats stopped, but the paranoia lingered. Roland was under investigation, Victor in hiding, and Lila was gone, but the unknown number haunted her. Zane hired round-the-clock security, and they moved to a new city, hoping for a fresh start. She rebuilt her ex-presence, now a voice for resilience, her followers in the hundreds of thousands. But the spotlight was heavy, she missed her old life, the simplicity of anonymity. Zane was different too, free from his father's shadow but still haunted by the cost. They leaned on each other, their love stronger for the fight, but the cracks showed in quiet moments. One night, she found him staring at old photos, his face heavy with regret. "Did I ruin you?" she asked, half joking, but his silence scared her. He pulled her close, promising they'd build something new, together. She wanted to believe him, but the unknown number's message echoed, was it really over? They decided to go public with their love, posting a joint X statement about their journey. The response was overwhelming, fans sent love, haters faded, and brands offered deals. She felt a spark of her old dream, to make something of herself, now within reach. But as they celebrated, her phone buzzed, a new photo, her and Zane walking in their new city. No message, just the image. She showed Zane, whose face hardened. They'd won the war, but someone was still watching, and the fight wasn't over. They hired a new PI, determined to find the final stalker. The trail was cold, the photo untraceable, but they refused to live in fear. She threw herself into her work, building a brand on X, sharing her story to inspire others. Zane supported her, his own path unclear but his love unwavering. They were a team, battle-tested, but the shadow of the unknown lingered, a reminder that their story wasn't tidy. One night, over dinner, Zane proposed, not with a ring, but with a promise to face whatever came next together. She said yes, tears in her eyes, knowing it wasn't a fairy tale but something better, real, messy, theirs. They posted a photo, her hand in his, captioned, "We're still here." X exploded with love, their story a beacon for dreamers. But she kept the latest photo hidden, not wanting to scare him. Whoever was watching was patient, and she'd be ready. As they planned their future, she checked her phone one last time. No new messages, But the feeling remained, someone was out there, waiting. She looked at Zayn, his smile warm, and decided it didn't matter. They'd faced billionaires, stalkers, and lies, and they were still standing. Whatever came next, they'd fight, together. The world was watching, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready.